Most Jewish children during World War II lost their families before they had a chance to complete their childhood. And those who managed to survive also never experienced a real childhood. But one heroic Jewish man gave the gift of life and childhood to hundreds of Jewish war children. His name was Yoine Tiefenbrunner, affectionately referred to as Monsieur. This is his story.
The concept of Kiddush Hashem is generally understood to mean that one dies for the sake of heaven, sanctifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. But the truth is that there was a greater Kiddush Hashem that the Churban Europa, the Holocaust, created within the entire world. Moran Avshach Zatzal, the Panavish Rosh Hashiva, explained that the ultimate Kiddush Hashem is to sanctify your life while you live. And Rav Shach said that Rebbe Kiva, when he was taken out, the Masrika Shel Balzel, he was put to death with combs of steel. So the Gemara tells us that Yotze Nishmasei Be'echad, his soul departed him with the clarion call, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Says Rav Shach, most people think that this is what Rebbe Kiva did right before he died. It's a mistake. If you look at the Gemara says, Zman Kriya Shema Hoya. It was the time to say Kriya Shema. In other words, Rebbe Kiva recited Kriya Shema moments before his death in the exact same fashion that he'd been reciting it for 20, 30, 50 years, every day of his life. And that's the key. The ultimate lesson, and specifically the lesson of these children who survived the war, placed in a children's home by a couple who could have easily made their way out and survived. Nevertheless, with great Mesiras Nefesh, stayed behind to nurture these children. And that's something that every youngster, every boy and girl in elementary school and high school and Beis Medrash and Kollel can live al Kiddush Hashem, and that will be the greatest memorial to all those who perished during the Holocaust.
Even before World War II had officially begun, Nazi oppression of Jews in Germany grew steadily worse. On November 9, 1938, Kristallnacht, a night of unspeakable violence against German and Austrian Jewry, shattered their illusion that things would get better.
Children did about as poorly as one could imagine Jews could do during the Holocaust. 1.5 million children were killed, and those numbers aren't just statistics today. I can tell you that I participated in finding out who the actual people that died were, and there are 1.5 million Jews. They have names, they belong to families, because we, in checking the monies that were given by families to various banks and insurance companies, when I was head of the claims conference, we found that Jewish children's names were actually specified as eventual heirs to insurance policies, and we knew their names and their addresses, and we knew that they went and were deported together with their families.
Unfortunately, my parents and many other people waited till after the Kristallnacht to decide this was going to get much, much worse, and they had to take action to leave the country. They already had closed the doors. They had decided that my sister Rosa and my sister was 5, I was 7 at the time, that we would leave Germany for Belgium by a midnight train, passing as children of somebody else. And the idea was we would sleep, they wouldn't bother us, The fact is, we didn't sleep, but we made as if we were sleeping. Nobody asked us any questions. And we arrived in Brussels the next morning. That's the last time I saw my parents. They sent me to a Christian orphanage. So, in fact, I stayed there for 2 full years almost. I felt abandoned, you know, and wondered, will somebody ever find me?
World War II began on September 1st, 1939, when the Nazi German government invaded Poland. The Nazis had a twofold mission: to establish a large empire covering the entirety of Europe, and to make that empire Judenrein, to annihilate all Jewry in their empire.
In various parts of Europe, every piece of property, every stick of furniture, every painting was stolen from the Jewish homes after they took the Jews and sent them away. They viewed it as an opportunity to steal, not only to kill.
On May 10th, 1940, they invaded Belgium.
And I remember as a kid, maybe 10 years old, waking up one morning and seeing the smoke puffs in the air, you know, and you hear the noise, the booms and the booms. Evidently the Germans had just begun to invade Belgium.
In a mere 18 days, the Belgian government was overthrown, and the Nazis systematically set in motion the deportation of Belgian Jewry to Auschwitz. Terror-filled were the days that followed. Thousands of Belgium's Jews, neighbors, friends, aunts, uncles, parents, and grandparents were dragged from the streets, from the shops, from their homes, and deported.
Once a lorry full of Jews passing under a bridge, and I always liked to travel as a child, and I said to them, bye bye, bye bye. And afterwards we got aware that actually they were deporting these Jews.
We didn't know that they were destroying Jews. We did know that they had taken our parents to some concentration camp, and we thought that after the war they would come back to us and take us home again. That's what we thought. We never imagined what we found out later had happened. We felt not orphans, but abandoned, with the hope of seeing our parents again in the future.
The arrested Jews were taken to the Mechelin detention camp. Mechelin was literally a torturous waiting room for death. In a matter of days, they would fill up a transport consisting of 1,000 people and stuff them on a train to Auschwitz. 28 convoys left Belgium from Mechelin, delivering over 25,000 Jews to Auschwitz. Of those, only 1,200 would survive. Petrified of being arrested and deported, Jews made every effort to escape or to hide.
Our father said he doesn't want to put the whole family in danger, and he arranged that we should be hidden by Gentiles outside of Antwerp, near to the Dutch border.
My mother knew that she was not very safe, that they had to be on the move, and so they packed whatever they could, and they moved to various addresses in Brussels. And then when she realized that it was too dangerous for her to maintain her kids, she decided that she was going to place us in a convent. We never heard from him since then.
After 2 weeks, one of the daughters went to Antwerp and she saw how they deported my parents and sister. This was such a shock for me. You know what was my feeling? Like you would have pulled off one of my arms.
I was in school. When we came home, we learned that my father had been deported.
The Germans first deported my father, and a few months later they came for my mother and the children. We were 4 children. The Germans, you know, they made it sound like it's voluntary and they'll help you and the children will go to school, and that she would have to work. So she decided to leave me behind because I was the youngest and I wasn't ready to go to school. and they were all taken to Mechelen and from there to Auschwitz.
I became wild. I started running out in the fields. They couldn't keep me, so they were afraid because the father of the family, he was actually working in the underground. They gave me over in a Gentile orphanage.
The underground was a group of people who participated in almost every country in Europe. They were opposed to Nazis, and they, in some cases, actually wanted to save Jews. And in many cases, they were actually Jews in the underground participating. They performed acts of heroism against all logic. They knew that their lives were in danger, but they knew that this was the only way to fight evil.
I have my own children now. I can imagine, it should be a terrible thing. You think, should I give my children to somebody I don't know? And what should I do? And well, they gave the children. That's why we are still alive.
My aunt, my mother's sister, who was living in Brussels, had found out that I was there. She took me out of there. She at that time had 2 children of her own. I stayed there about 3-4 months. They arranged for me to find a Jewish orphanage. In December 1941, I wound up at Tiefenbrunner.
In the midst of these horrors, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent a malach to save Jewish children in Belgium. To the children, he would be known as Monsieur. His name was Yoine Tiefenbrunner. Yoine Tiefenbrunner was born on June 18, 1914, in Wiesbaden, Germany, where he grew up amidst a large family.
We were a family of 8 children. My parents emigrated from Poland to Wiesbaden. We were never rich people. We had a macolet. Already as young children, we had to help in the shop to deliver the goods. That was the way how we were brought up. Yoine, who was affiliated to the Agudat Israel, and he became the leader of the young Aguda group Ezra. And he was partaking in meetings and conferences all over Europe. So he also left the house and later joined a yeshiva in Frankfurt. After finishing yeshiva and rabbinical seminar, he went to Cologne to be a teacher. And on the day of the deportation of the Ostjuden, he smuggled across the border, also into Belgium, and was living together with my brother in Belgium. And Yoine became a director of a children's home, which were 95% of refugee children.
I was lucky because I had a father. Most of them had no parents. I understood we don't have our mother, and my father can't possibly take care of us. And this is what a war can do to you. A child can become a mature person.
He believed this was Bin Hashemayim, that he was chosen, and that mission was saving children.
On May 9th, 1940, the day before the Nazis invaded Belgium, Yoine married Ruth Feldheim.
They woke up, and my mother said, "There's a thunder." And my father said, "No, it's the Germans, they were shooting." So that was their honeymoon.
As the war hit Belgium in all its fury, and everyone began to flee, newly married Yoine made a life choice few of us would ever be able to contemplate, much less embrace. They wouldn't run away. He and his wife would stay on at the children's home to care for the children.
When I came into the home, I was a lost little girl, and I met Mr. Tiefenbrunner. He was so good to me.
there was a synagogue around the corner called Aguda Yisrael. Tiefenbrunner was head of the Aguda Israel in Antwerp at that time. And I was bar mitzvah, not 13, I was bar mitzvah when I was 14. Because, you know, I was from the convent and stuff like that, and I had to learn.
In nearly every other Nazi-occupied country, the local Gentile populations were all too willing accomplices to the Nazis. But to their great praise, the Belgian Gentile population actually protested the sadistic treatment of the Jews of their country.
And the people in Belgium who did this were unique people. These people were people who did things which go against the current. They were really Anashim Neged Hazerem.
To placate them, the Nazis officially exempted children from deportation and established government-funded residences for them, providing food, clothing, and maintenance of the premises. And so it was that Yoine Tiefenbrunner's children's home became one of the 7 Jewish children's homes under the Nazi occupational government's auspices in Belgium during World War II, the only observant one, Shomer Torah u'Mitzvos.
When I came to the home and was wearing a cross, which I was very attached to because I had been in the convent and I had been to church and I was really convinced about the Christian religion. Nobody said anything. You know, not Mr. Tiefenbrunner. They just waited until I understood and came on my own and took it off and said, if this is not my God, I don't have to wear this.
He didn't ask them where they come from, how often they davened Mincha and Maariv. He asked them, are you Jewish, from a Jewish mother? As long as that was established, he was taking them in.
Then came Pesach, and I don't know how, I had the idea to go to the building, and I saw, you know, nice white tablecloths on the tables. It was a festive atmosphere. This is the first time in the war that I saw a Jewish atmosphere. It attracted me. There was standing a man and he looked at me and he asked me, what's your name? I said, my name is Aaron Peterfreund. He said, your parents had a shop of electric supplies. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, I know your parents. This was Mr. Tiefenbrunner. I was an orphan. I was a nothing. And there came somebody who told me, you're not a nothing. I knew your parents, you're a Jewish boy. So I started to get myself back to feel like a more human being.
The home at that time was only for teenagers who were already working, mostly apprenticeships. When I arrived, I was 10 years old. And I was the first one of the youngsters. And I remember very well because I was sort of surprised. I was the center of attention. There were about 20 older ones, and I was like the mascot or something.
Within a few months, the Kinderheim filled up from 4.5-year-old to 12-year-old to 16-year-old.
The children's homes, or in German Kinderheims, were given quite a bit of leeway in terms of internal management and education. However, despite this apparent freedom and protection, an ever-present cloud of fear hovered. Who could trust Nazis? At any moment, they could change their policy and round them up for deportation. Now that Yoine's children's home was recognized as one of the official Nazi safe homes, many parents, family members, and non-Jews harboring Jewish children began dropping them there.
Inside it was pretty normal. But the fact was, we were aware that we were like in a fishbowl, you know? And any day they could come and just fish, which they did, because if you turned 16, You had to report to the Gestapo. The anxiety was always there.
פיחדנו כל הזמן שיקחו אותה.
We were always afraid that they might take us. We were always afraid.
פיחדנו כל הזמן. אנחנו
We were never
לא היינו
completely calm in the children's home.
מוחלט בבית הילדים.
Many times they would come. In the middle of the night, they would break the door sometimes.
Nein, mach die Tür auf. Wo sind die Kinder? Wo sind die Kinder? Wo sind die Kinder? Wo sind die Kinder?
They would wake us up roughly. They would take the blanket and say, "Get up!"
תקום.
We were afraid. Every morning we thought, when will evening come? And every evening we thought, when will it be morning? We were never certain that we would survive that period.
את התקופה הזאת.
As youngsters, a lot of us probably realized that, after 3 or 4 months, your mother didn't come to visit you, that she was probably apprehended.
We found out that my father was dead. He was killed in Auschwitz. I was 6 years old when I lost my father.
He took a young girl who was connected to the Communist Party in Belgium, in the resistance also. And she begged him he should take her as madricha, because this was a safety guarantee. And he took her, but he put some conditions that she should cut all her ties with the Communist Party, because he didn't want to